No doctor could calm the royal baby, until a human janitor walked by while humming. The crystal cradle looked like it belonged in a cathedral, not a clinic. Arin Solace's mop bucket squeaked to a stop just short of the nursery threshold as he stared, trying not to. The cradle rose from the floor like a carved iceberg, its facets catching light from the chandelier above and casting strange, shimmering patterns onto the domed ceiling. Inside, wrapped in layers of silken nanofabric, the royal infant glowed. Not metaphorically, actually glowed, a soft blue radiance pulsing under translucent skin, brightest around the crown of the baby's head where a faint halo of photons flickered and snapped like static. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. The baby's crying cut straight through Arin's bones. It wasn't a normal wail. It lilted up into frequencies that made the glass panels hum, dipped in a low, shivering notes that buzzed in his teeth. Every time the child inhaled, there was a moment of trembling silence, as if the whole room held its breath with him, waiting for the next blast of sound. Heart rate spiking again, one of the white-coated doctors muttered. She was tall and sharp-boned, her lab coat bearing the crest of the Stellar Regency. Neural fields are destabilizing. Arin realized he was still standing in the doorway in his gray janitorial coveralls with his name patch, Orion, in blocky letters. He tightened his grip on the mop. He was supposed to keep his head down. He was supposed to clean the floors, not gawk at the most important baby in the Orion arm. He forced his eyes down to the tiles. They were pristine already, polished to a mirror sheen, but his schedule told him the nursery corridor got a double pass every hour. You didn't argue with palace logistics, or with the biosecurity drones gliding overhead, their lenses whirring in quiet, predatory arcs. Another cry sliced the air, higher this time. Arin flinched. No one else in the room moved. The lead Medicaean, a silver-haired man with a face like carved marble, flicked his wrist and summoned a circular hollow display. Concentric waves of light blossomed above his palm, forming a spinning model of the baby's brain, tiny regions flaring bright red. "We've administered every approved sedative," he said, voice clipped. "Neural gel packs, resonance dampers, full-spectrum lull algorithms. The protocol has not failed before. Yet the crown heir continues to exhibit extreme distress. Maybe," another doctor said carefully, "the problem is not with the air. Perhaps there is environmental irritant we are failing to detect." The silver-haired man's eyes flicked briefly toward Arin. "No," past him to the open doorway to the corridor beyond. "Seal the nursery," he ordered. "No one in or out who is not essential staff." A security field shimmered into existence, transparent but faintly blue, filling the door frame. Arin swallowed. Essential staff meant not him. He was now an obstacle, standing in the wrong place. "Apologies," he muttered, backing his bucket away. "Didn't mean to." The baby's crying hit a new pitch, a torn, desperate sound that made Arin's skin prickle. For a second, in the middle of it, he heard something else, a wavering note, like a question. The sound jolted him back 6 years, to a cramped unit in Habitat Ring 7, to his sister Mira clutching her newborn while the cheap oxygen recyclers wheezed and clanked. "She doesn't like the silence," Mira had said, exhausted, hair plastered to her face. "The machine stopped for maintenance, and she just screams." Back then, Arin had done the only thing he could think of. He'd hummed old Earth songs his grandmother had loved, half-forgotten melodies pulled from the dusty corners of his memory. Simple, looping tunes that made no sense in the language of the Regency, but felt like home. The baby in Myra's arms had quieted, almost at once. Behind the security field, the royal infant's tiny fists clenched, luminous fingers trembling. The magicians spoke in low, urgent voices, their tablets and hollow displays casting ghostly patterns on the ornate walls. The baby's cries tangled with the beeps and chimes of medical equipment, turning the nursery into a carved crystal echo chamber of panic. Arin's chest ached. It wasn't just the sound. It was the expression on that tiny, glowing face, red with effort, eyes scrunched shut, mouth open on what had to be pain. "You're mopping floors," he told himself. "You need this job. Just turn around." He pivoted his bucket, the ancient casters squealing. The noise made one of the magicians wince. A nearby nurse shot him a glare through the field. "Can you not?" she mouthed. "Sorry," Arin whispered. He angled the mop carefully, trying to move quietly. The corridor lights were soft and warm, diffused through hanging glass lanterns patterned like star charts. Somewhere in the palace above, distant music drifted, courtly strings and choral voices rehearsing for some ceremony he'd never see. He realized, distantly, that he was matching the music's rhythm as he pushed the mop. He always did that, syncing his movements to whatever background sound existed in a room. It made the work easier, mindless, safe. The baby cried again, and the palace music faltered. Someone up there had missed a note. Down here, the sound tore something open in Arin. He thought of Myra's daughter, now 6, and living on a different world thanks to a scholarship he'd never get. He thought of the years before this job, before the palace, when humanity's role in the regency was clear: technicians, janitors, cooks. Support species. Useful, but not important. No doctor could calm the royal baby. That was what the palace rumor stream had been roaring all morning. The infant had started crying at dawn cycle and had barely stopped. Some said the child's engineered neurofield was rejecting the standard therapies. Others whispered about omens and curses, about a faulty gene splice that could topple dynasties. Either way, no one expected a human janitor to do anything but clean up after the crisis. Arin drew a breath, let it out slowly, and realized he was humming. It started as barely a vibration in his chest, a subconscious answer to the baby's wail. A counternote, a line of melody his grandmother used to hum while shelling beans in the hydroponic gardens somewhere back on the creaking generation ship that had first delivered his family to Regency space. The song had no words anymore. If it ever had, he'd forgotten them. But the tune wound gentle and looping, like a river scene from orbit. He froze, heat flooding his face. Humming on duty, within earshot of the royal nursery. He was begging for a disciplinary notice. Yet even as he tried to stop, the melody pushed its way out again, soft and insistent. He kept it quiet, barely louder than his breath, as he moved past the nursery door. The mop swished in time, drawing clean arcs of water across the floor. On the other side of the security field, the baby hiccuped mid-cry. The magicians' voices faltered. One of them looked sharply at a monitor, then up at the cradle. "Did you see that fluctuation?" she asked. Neural variance dropped by. The infant's next wail cut off like a severed wire. In the sudden silence, Arin's humming sounded absurdly loud to his own ears, though he was barely whispering. The tune quavered, wanting to die. The baby inhaled, chest shuddering. Instead of screaming, he made a small, startled sound. Arin's steps slowed. He was still moving, because to stop would be to admit he'd noticed, to draw attention. But his mop strokes grew smaller. Another breath. Another wordless, exploratory noise from the cradle. The silver-haired Medicaean stiffened. "Quiet," he said sharply, lifting a hand. The magicians and nurses fell silent, even the machines dimming their chimes and whirs. In the hush, Arin's humming threaded through the air like smoke. The baby turned his head. Arin couldn't see it directly. The security field distorted the view from his angle. But every person in the room had pivoted at once, their gazes snapping toward the doorway, toward him. Their expressions were a mix of incredulity and something else, hope sharpened by fear. "Continue that sound," the silver-haired Medicaean said, voice clipped. "Who is making that sound?" Arin's mouth went cotton dry. His humming stuttered and nearly stopped. Immediately, the baby's lower lip trembled, and his little face crumpled. He's going to cry again, Arin thought, with a certainty that hit like a physical thing. So he did the stupidest, bravest thing he'd ever done in his life. He met the magician's gaze through the security field and kept humming. The baby's face relaxed. The glow around his head steadied, the frantic sparking settling into a soft, regular pulse. The tiny fists unclenched. Slowly, cautiously, the infant's eyes opened. Large, luminous, an uncanny shade between silver and blue. Those eyes locked on Arin. The sensation was like stepping into cold water. Not painful, just sudden, overwhelming, every nerve shocked awake. For an instant, the world narrowed to a line between his chest and those alien young eyes. His melody wavered, then smoothed again, falling into a steady, rocking rhythm. The baby made a sound halfway between a coo and a sigh. Neural variance is stabilizing, one of the magicians whispered, looking between her tablet and the child. Heart rate dropping to baseline. Field harmonics aligning with an external pattern. The silver-haired magician's gaze had gone flinty and calculating. Source of the pattern is that human, he said. The janitor. Arin's knees went weak. He focused on pushing the mop in gentle arcs, on keeping his voice low and even. The old song wrapped around him like a shield. He could feel the baby following each shift in the tune, micro-expressions flickering across his small face as if he were tasting emotions in the air. Open the field, the Medicaean ordered. Protocol, a nurse began. Open it. Now. The security shimmer dissolved with a soft crackle, leaving the doorway unobstructed. Sterile, conditioned air washed over Arin, tinged with antiseptic and something sweet from the baby's cradle. He automatically started to step back, but a gloved hand caught his elbow with surprising gentleness. Come, said the Medicaean. Up close. The man's eyes were a pale, overcast gray. Do not stop whatever you are doing. The air responds to it. We need you closer. I'm nobody, Arin managed, his humming wobbling. I clean floors. Right now, the Medicaean said, guiding him into the nursery, you are the only thing in this palace that works. Arin's heart hammered so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. But the moment his boots crossed onto the nursery tiles, the baby gave a breathy, delighted sound. The glow around the infant brightened, not in a frantic, strobing way from before, but like dawn filling a room. That's it, murmured one of the doctors. Look at the coherence. He's sinking. Arin approached the crystal cradle as if drawn by gravity. The edges of it caught the light, refracting his own reflection back at him in jagged, shifting shards. A young man in a gray coverall surrounded by white coats and gold filigree. His humming softened, became almost a lull. The royal baby watched him with solemn intensity, tiny fingers flexing in time with the notes. In a palace built by species who thought humans were best suited to carry brooms and serve food, a janitor stood at the center of a room full of powerless experts, humming an old earth song to a child who could one day rule them all. And the child was listening. Arin had never been this close to someone so small. The crystal cradle rose to waist height, its bowl lined with woven light fabric that adjusted itself with every tiny movement. The baby lay in the center, limbs slightly splayed, like a starfish washed onto a shore of spun glass. Up close, the glow under his skin was even more uncanny. It traced faint lines at his temples, spiderwebbed down his arms, pulsed most brightly in the soft spot at the top of his head. It looked like someone had poured starlight into a human mold and hoped for the best. Arin kept humming because if he stopped, he wasn't sure his legs would hold him. The tune wrapped around them both, a simple rise and fall that he'd used to calm a half-dozen infants in his life. None more important than this. All equally helpless. The room full of specialists might as well have vanished. His focus tunneled down to the baby's breathing, the slow unclench of tiny muscles, the way those silver-blue eyes followed his face. Neural variance holding, murmured the sharp-boned doctor from earlier, reading off her slate. Field harmonics, 98% coherent. This is unprecedented. The silver-haired Medicaean, his name tag finally resolved in Arin's peripheral vision as Dr. Verrill, didn't answer right away. He circled the cradle instead, studying Arin from every angle as though he were a newly discovered species. What is that melody? Verrill asked at last. Arin nearly choked. Just an old song, he said, fighting to keep his voice steady around the notes. From Earth, I think. My grandmother used to hum it. Is it scripted? Culturally encoded? Verrill pressed. He had switched off the bedside hollow to give Arin his full, unblinking attention. Are there lyrics with semantic content? A ritual? It's just a lullaby, Arin said, feeling heat creep up his neck. I don't even know the words. It's the rhythm that matters. Veril glanced at the monitors. The air's neurofield suggests otherwise. He turned back. Keep going. It wasn't really a request. They studied him as if he were a device they'd finally managed to switch on. Light from the chandelier gleamed off their ocular implants and polished badges, flecking the air with reflections. One nurse edged closer with a palm-sized sensor disc, which she held near Arin's throat and chest. Graphs blossomed in the air above it, jagged lines dancing in time with his humming. Observe the pattern, she said, excitement breaking through her formal tone. Biological vocalization encoded with emotion-rich modulation. It's not just sound. His entire autonomic system is oscillating in phase with the melody. We've used vocal output before, another doctor objected. Synthetic voices, full-spectrum audio therapy. From machines, the nurse said. Pre-calculated. Clean. She nodded toward Arin. His signal is messy. Arin might have been offended if the baby hadn't chosen that exact moment to hiccup and reach toward him. The gesture shattered what little distance Arin had dared to keep. He found himself laying one hand on the rim of the cradle, leaning closer. The baby's fingers brushed the air near his own, not quite touching, but as they moved, feathery strands of blue light trailed after them, like bioluminescent fibers in water. A tingling brushed Arin's skin. His humming stumbled a little, adapting to the new sensation, and the strands of light responded, tightening, then loosening, almost as if they'd synced to the change. He's mapping your emotional field, Veril said quietly. For the first time, there was something like awe in his voice. Of all the species available, of course it would be human. Arin dared to glance up. What's that supposed to mean? Veril exhaled, as if reluctantly allowing him context. The royal genome is a composite of the Regency's founding species, he said. The heir's mind is engineered to sense and regulate a wide variety of neural signatures. We gave him everything we had. His mouth twisted faintly. Everything except the pattern that would teach him how to be small, frightened, and cared for at the same time. Arin blinked. You mean you gave him all the big stuff, but not? Humans, Veril said, are unusually proficient at low-level emotional broadcasting. Your brains leak. He tapped his own temple with a gloved finger. You synchronize with one another through micro-expressions, tone, posture. It's inefficient and imprecise, and we believed it beneath the notice of sovereign design. One of the older magicians cleared his throat. We documented humans calming non-human infants in mixed habitats, he said. But those were anecdotal reports. We never considered incorporating it into the heir's protocols. We should have, Veril said. The baby wriggled, his glow ebbing to a gentle shimmer. His eyelids drooped. Arin's shoulders loosened an inch. He hadn't even realized how tightly he'd been holding himself until that soft, almost sigh escaped the child's lips. You mean all your machines, your resonance dampers and neural gels? Arin shook his head, still humming. And what he needed was somebody with shaky hands and a bad singing voice. A human, Veril corrected. He needed a human. For a heartbeat, the room's hierarchy tilted. The magicians, the nurses, the security drones, all of it felt like scenery. Arin and the infant were the only real things, joined by a thread of melody that stretched back to a tiny hydro garden on a failing ship, and farther still, to a blue planet no one in this room had ever seen. The door to the nursery hissed open. Conversation snapped off. Even Arin's humming wobbled, though he forced it back in a line. The baby's eyes fluttered, threatening another storm. A figure swept into the room, surrounded by a ripple of bowed heads. She wore no lab coat, no security harness, only a long, midnight dark gown that shimmered like the sky between stars. A simple circlet of metal rested on her brow, inset with a single pulsing jewel that matched the baby's glow. Regent Elira of the Stellar Regency was shorter than Arin expected. Her presence made up the difference. She moved to the cradle without looking at anyone else, her gaze fixed on the child. Her features were a blend of species, slightly elongated eyes, faint shimmer at her fingertips, skin with an undertone of iridescence when the light struck it just right. In that moment, with worry softening the lines of her face, she looked only like a parent. The magicians parted to let her through. Arin instinctively started to step back, but Veryl's hand landed on his shoulder, heavy as a gravity plate. "Continue," the doctor murmured. "If he cries now, the regent will want answers." Arin swallowed and obeyed. The lullaby rose again, a little shaky at first but smoothing as he caught the regent's gaze. Her eyes were the same overcast gray as Veryl's, but when they slid from the cradle to him, something sparked behind them. Calculation and surprise and another emotion he couldn't parse. "What is this?" she asked. Veryl bowed his head slightly. "Your Grace." The heir's neural signals failed to respond to standard interventions. However, when this human passed the nursery humming, the distress ceased and has not returned. Allura studied Arin openly, taking in his gray coveralls, his name patch, the mop still clenched in his offhand like a ridiculous scepter. The corner of her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Extraordinary," she said. Her voice was low and melodic, with a slight resonance that hinted at built-in vocal augmentation. "Name?" "Arin Solace, Your Grace," he said, because his mother had raised him with manners, even if she'd never expected him to use them in front of rulers. "Facility maintenance, Tier 3. I'm mop." A few of the magicians shifted, uncomfortable. No one told the regent that a man who mopped floors now held her child's life in his shaking hands. They didn't have to. She could see it. "You have done more than mop today, Arin Solace," she said. "You have given my son his first hour of peace since he opened his eyes." Her words landed heavier than any praise he'd ever heard. He nearly lost the melody again. The baby cooed, as if pleased by the sound of his mother's voice intertwined with Arin's humming. Soft light rippled across his cheeks. Elira's shoulders relaxed fractionally. The change in her posture was subtle but seismic. The magicians, seeing it, seemed to breathe for the first time in hours. "Explain," Elira said, turning to Veryl without taking her hand from the edge of the cradle. "We believe the heir's hybrid neurofield is over-responsive to synthetic stimuli," Veryl said. "Our protocols relied on clean, repeatable signals. The human's vocalization introduces noise, complexity, that the heir can anchor to. It appears his neural architecture seeks out living patterns. In plain language," one of the magicians added, "the heir wants a messy mind to listen to. Humans are very messy." Elira's gaze returned to Arin. "Can you sustain this for long?" Arin thought about his shift schedule, about the chrono tucked into his pocket. He'd been on his feet for 6 hours already. His throat felt dry as recycled air. "I could try," he said. The regent studied him for another moment. Something in his answer pleased her. Her shoulders eased further. "You will not try," she said. "You will be given rest, hydration, and anything else Dr. Veryl deems necessary. Effective immediately, you are reassigned to the royal nursery as primary human interface." Primary human what? The words rattled in Arin's skull like loose screws. Somewhere, a lifetime of messages about knowing his place and not making trouble tried to stage a mutiny. Maintenance Tier 3 employees did not get reassigned by personal command of the regent. They did not stand near crystal cradles and get new job titles invented around them. "Your Grace," Veryl said cautiously, "we must test repeatability. One human pattern may work, another may not. We'll need a control group, comparative studies, genetic mapping. And while you map, my son will scream himself towards synaptic collapse." Elira's tone was mild, but the room temperature seemed to drop. "No, begin your studies, doctor. Use volunteers from the human cohort, as you wish. But Arin Solace remains with the heir until you have something better to offer than theory." Arin's brain latched onto the word volunteer somewhere in there. Images flickered. Other humans in gray coveralls, summoned to be poked and scanned because one of their own had accidentally mattered. Some of them would jump at the chance. Others, not so much. Humanity's position in the Regency was comfortable in the way a cage was comfortable. Safe, as long as you didn't rattle the bars. He just rattled them with a lullaby. I will require access to human cultural archives. Veryl's mind was already racing ahead, specifically musical traditions, folk songs, nursery rhymes, labor chants, anything centered on shared emotional experience. That can be arranged, Elira said. Also, Veryl added reluctantly, we should consider the philanthropic implications. If humans possess a unique capacity to stabilize hybrid neurofields, it could alter how we structure childcare across the Regency. Multi-species habitats, diplomatic creches. You're discussing policy while my child is finally asleep, Elira said dryly. Arin hadn't even realized the baby had drifted off. The tiny chest rose and fell in slow, even breaths. The glow had dimmed to a soft halo, like the last of a sunset caught in glass. His humming tapered to a murmur, then to silence. No one spoke. No one moved. It struck Arin in that fragile quiet that he was standing inside a hinge moment. History might record this as the day when neural science advanced, when hybrid sovereigns gained access to some crucial pattern. But for him, it would always be simpler. The day he discovered that the thing he'd done his whole life without thinking, humming to fussy infants, matching his rhythm to theirs, wasn't just kindness. It was power. Humans had always grown around the gaps of larger species plans like ivy on manufactured walls. Nobody designed the ivy. Nobody ordered it. It simply found cracks, claimed them, and changed the shape of the structure by existing. Elira's gaze was on him again, more thoughtful now. Arin Solace, she said quietly, do you understand what you have done? He hesitated. I kept a baby from crying. A small, real smile touched her mouth. Yes, she said, and in doing so, you reminded the Regency that some solutions cannot be engineered in a lab. The words warmed him in a way palace heating never could. The warmth lasted until his shift officially ended and logistics pinged his work band with a flurry of confused messages. His supervisor, a broad-shouldered man named Jackson with a perpetually harassed expression, met him outside the nursery with his hands thrown up. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? Jackson demanded, keeping his voice low out of sheer habit. The corridors near the nursery were full of ears. You disappeared from your route, you triggered 3 security alerts, and now I'm getting directives stamped with the Regent's personal seal telling me you don't answer to me anymore. Arin, still buoyed by the surreal calm of the nursery, blinked. Sorry. Don't you sorry me. Jackson scrubbed a hand over his face. I mean, congratulations. I think. I've been managing humans in this palace for 20 years. None of us ever get promoted. They created a title for you. Solace. Primary human interface. That sounds like the sort of thing that comes with either a raise or an autopsy. Arin winced. Were they angry? Logistics? Furious. Jackson's mouth twitched. The Regent? From what little trickled down, grateful. That's worse. When they're mad at us, they ignore us. When they're grateful, they start paying attention. And the other species? He jerked his chin toward a pair of passing functionaries, their skin a shimmer of scaled patterns. They gave Arin a look that was not quite disdain, not quite fear. They're talking. Humans in the center of the palace. Humans with influence. He shook his head. Careful, kid. The last time a human got that, we ended up with conscription instead of overtime. Arin swallowed. I didn't mean for any of this. I know. Jackson sighed. Which is probably the only reason I'm not reporting you for abandoning your post. Also the Regent's seal. That helps. He clapped Arin's shoulder, the gesture awkward and unexpectedly fond. Just be you, I guess. Breathe, whatever it is you do. If it keeps the baby quiet, maybe they won't dismantle you to see how you work. It was half a joke. It still made Arin's stomach flip. That night, or what passed for night on a palace locked in artificial cycles, Arin didn't go back to his bunk in the staff barracks. Instead, he got a narrow cot in a small room adjacent to the nursery, its walls lined not with brooms and cleaning supplies, but with monitoring equipment. A nurse named Liz, human herself, but with a retinal implant that marked her as high-tier med tech, showed him where the hydration packs were stored and how to ping security if he needed anything. You're one of us, she said, studying him with open curiosity. But you're not now. They're going to want to know why you, not me. Why your humming matters and mine doesn't. Arin thought of all the nights he'd fallen asleep humming to drown out the metallic groan of failing life support in the old habitats. Maybe it's just practice, he said. Maybe. Lissa's smile was quick and sharp. Or maybe you were just the one who walked past at the right time. When the baby woke again, hours later, it was to a nightmare of sound. Alarms shrilled in 3 different timbres. Light strobed in warning bands along the ceiling. Arin stumbled from his cot, heart racing, throat dry, as voices crackled over the intercom. Unidentified ship exiting dark space directly inside the internet. Security breach in orbitals 2 through 5. All personnel to shelter points. This is not a drill. The nursery doors remained sealed, the security field bright and solid. Inside, the crystal cradle swam in chaotic light. The baby was crying again, not just in discomfort, but in fear. The glow around him flared, overloading some of the sensors, making them pop and sizzle. Arin didn't know what was happening beyond these walls. He did know that if the air's neurofield destabilized at the same time as some external threat hit the palace, very bad things could happen to everyone inside. He rushed to the cradle and began to hum. The melody found him easier this time, like an old friend snapping to his side. It rose above the alarms, not louder, but more persistent, threading through the noise. The baby's light flickered, then steadied a fraction. Outside, the world might be coming apart. Inside, in a small pocket of crystal and sound, a human janitor did the one thing he knew how to do. He made a scared child feel less alone. And as he did, something in the palace systems noticed. Because the air's neurofield was tied into the Regency's defensive lattice in ways no one fully understood, and when a messy human signal began to harmonize that field, the cascade of effects did not stop at the nursery walls. Arin wasn't aware of the shift at first. He was too focused on keeping the baby's terror from cascading into a full neurofield spike. His humming had to stay even, warm, certain, something he himself did not feel as the alarms continued to scream and the lights strobed red against the crystal cradle. The infant writhed, the glow under his skin jolting like lightning trapped behind glass. Hey, Arin whispered between notes, his voice trembling but steady enough to hold the melody. You're okay. I'm right here. I've got you. The baby's cries were breathless now, broken, like a radio signal trying to transmit through static. His glow reached a dangerous saturation. The edges of the cradle began to hum with the buildup. Arin recognized the sound. Resonant overload. If the cradle destabilized, the shockwave would take the entire nursery with it. He hummed louder. Not forcefully, just with more presence, more breath, more intention. The melody deepened, his chest vibrating with it. Then the world changed. The alarms didn't stop, they stretched. The sound elongated as if pulled like taffy, each shrill tone bending down into something almost musical before snapping upright again. Life in the ceiling danced in sync with the rhythm of his humming, no longer chaotic but pulsing in smooth waves. The air grew warmer, vibrating gently against his skin. What? Arin breathed, but the question dissolved in the melody. The baby responded instantly. His glow brightened, and then smoothed, like a flickering candle settling into a steady flame. The infant's cry wavered, cracked, and tapered into a soft, shuddering whine. Even his tiny fists unclenched by degrees. And at that exact moment, every alarm in the palace cut out. Silence slammed into the room like a vacuum. Arin froze mid-note. The baby blinked up at him, startled by the sudden quiet. What did I just do? Arin whispered. A chime replaced the alarms. Low, melodic, resonant, as if a cathedral bell had been struck somewhere deep within the palace. It vibrated through the floor, rattling the monitors. Even the crystal cradle echoed softly. The nursery doors hissed and flew open. Armed guards spilled inside first, fanning out in a protective arc with weapons ready. Behind them strode Regent Allura, cloak flowing like dark water fabric, eyes blazing with the kind of cold control that entire governments were built on. Her expression cracked when she saw Arin. And then, unthinkably when she saw the baby. "He is stable," she breathed. "Not a question. A prayer." Veril and a cluster of magicians rushed past her, scanning the air, staring at their tablets in disbelief. "The neurofield," one gasped. "It's not just stabilizing. It's harmonizing with the palace lattice." Elira turned sharply toward the guards. "Status of the incursion." A woman in silver armor spoke without lowering her weapon. "An unidentified ship breached the inner net, Your Grace. Dark space entry directly into orbit. Shields glitched. Defense protocols stalled." Then, she looked at Arin. Everything resynced. Instantly, Elira's gaze snapped to him. Arin swallowed. "I just hummed." "The air echoed him," Veril said. His voice shook with a scientist's awe. "The baby used the janitor's emotional signal as a carrier wave to correct the palace's defensive lattice." A beat of stunned silence. Then, the air stabilized our planetary shield. Elira demanded. "It appears so," Veril said. Through him, every guard turned to stare. A few took involuntary steps back, not in fear of Arin, but in the uneasy awe reserved for things that did not fit the universe's rulebook. "This isn't possible," Elira whispered. But she said it like someone who knew it was, who had just watched it happen. Arin wanted to sink into the floor. "Your Grace, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interfere with anything. I was just trying to keep him calm, and—" "You saved my child," Elira said sharply. "And possibly my throne." Arin shut his mouth. The regent took 2 strides toward him. Up close, power radiated off her in subtle ways. A faint corona of heat, a hum under the air, a sense that everything about her carried weight. She placed a hand on the cradle. The baby cooed. Elira's voice softened. "What you did a moment ago affected every system tied to the air's neurofield. Do you understand what that means?" Arin shook his head helplessly. "I'm not anything. I don't have training. I fix vacuum vents and unjam floor scrubbers. I'm not meant to be in rooms like this. Yet here you are," Elira said. "And here he is, quiet only because of you." Veril stepped forward, pushing up his sleeves. "Your Grace, we need him monitored. Studied. His neural emissions, his emotional resonance, they're unlike anything in our charts. Humans were always statistical anomalies, but this—" "No," Elira said. Veril blinked. "Your Grace." "No," she repeated. "You will not dissect him like a botched prototype. You will not experiment on him. You will observe him only in context of his new assignment." A ripple went through the magicians. Arin stared. "New assignment?" Elira turned to him fully. "Arin Solace," she said. "You are no longer a maintenance worker. Effective immediately, you are appointed royal custodian of the air." Arin's brain made a soft popping sound inside his skull. The guard straightened. Veril's slate clattered to the floor. A nearby nurse let out a small, reverent gasp. "I'm what?" Arin stammered. "You are the only one he responds to," Elira said. "The only one who can regulate his neurofield without risking collapse." And now, her gaze flicked meaningfully toward the ceiling. "It seems the air may be wired more deeply into the palace network than even we understood." Elira's jaw tightened as she leaned in. "I will not gamble my son's life. Or my people's." Arin felt his throat close. "I don't know how to do this. I'm just human," she finished for him. "Exactly what he needs." That landed heavier than praise. It sounded like truth. "Your Grace," a voice cried from the hall. Everyone turned. A comms officer sprinted in, breathless. "The unidentified ship is approaching again. It's not broadcasting. No insignia. No crew detected. She hesitated. "What?" Elira demanded. "It's reacting to the air's neurofield," the officer said, wide-eyed. "Tracking him. The ship is honing in directly on the nursery." Guards surged into motion instantly, forming defensive positions. Elira snapped to Veril. "Seal the palace. Full lockdown. Get the air moved to the secure chamber." "No," a Medicaean shouted. "If we move him, his neurofield could destabilize again. And if we don't," Elira said coldly, "we risk allowing an unknown threat to breach the very room he sleeps in." The baby whimpered, reacting to the rising tension. His glow flickered. Arin felt dread coil through his gut. He began humming again without thinking, and the baby steadied. But the lights overhead flickered too. Veril stared. The air is sinking to him again. If we move the child while the human regulates him, we may avoid destabilizing the field. Elira exhaled breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Then the solution is simple. She turned to Arin. You stay with him. Every second, Arin felt the weight of those words crash over him. Stay with him. Through a crisis. Through a threat coming straight for them. Through a situation so far above his pay grade it might as well be in orbit. But when the baby's trembling hand reached for him, glowing faintly, trusting utterly, Arin knew his answer. Yes, Your Grace, he said quietly. I'll stay. Then prepare, Elira said, signaling the guards. They're coming. The palace trembled faintly, just enough to tell everyone that the threat outside was close. Very close. Arin kept humming, and the baby kept glowing, but now the glow began to spread. Thin strands of light reaching from the cradle toward the walls, as if the air were extending invisible fingers through the palace itself. And somewhere in orbit, an unseen ship answered. The palace shuddered again, stronger this time. Dust drifted from the edges of an ornamental starburst carved into the ceiling. Several guards instinctively raised their rifles toward empty air, bracing for an impact that did not come. The tremor wasn't physical. It felt inside the walls, like tension tightening a massive, unseen muscle. Arin's humming dipped, hitched, and the baby whimpered. No, he whispered quickly, leaning in. No, you're okay. We've got you. He steadied his breath, found the melody again, and the child relaxed, glowing faintly brighter. Veril was pacing in tight circles, muttering into his slate. The air is interfacing with the palace lattice. This should not be possible. No infant should have cognitive access at this level. He doesn't, Elira snapped. He has Arin Solace. Arin almost missed a note. The regent pointed toward him, eyes burning with a kind of fierce precision. The human's neural emissions are acting as a translator. The air is borrowing his signal, projecting it through the lattice. A warning siren pulsed 3 times, low, long, resonant. The comms officer from earlier nearly stumbled back into the room, pale. Your Grace, the unidentified vessel has halted directly above the palace's central dome. Is it attacking? A guard demanded. No, the officer said, shaking her head. It's waiting. Elira's jaw clenched. For what? And then the air answered. Not with words. He was still too tiny, too new, but with light. The infant's glow surged outward in a soft wave that rippled across the nursery, across the walls, across the floor. The filigree patterns etched into the palace architecture lit up in response, lines of pale blue radiance streaking outward like a nervous system activating. Panels in the walls hummed. Sensor arrays rotated. The floor vibrated in a steady rhythm, Arin's rhythm. His humming. Oh stars, Veril breathed. He's mapping her melody directly into the palace defense network. Arin felt his knees wobble. This isn't. How do I make it stop? You don't, Elira said, stepping closer. You keep him calm. That is the only variable we can control. The baby turned his glowing eyes toward Arin, full of something that felt far too knowing for a child who had taken fewer than 10 breaths without crying. Tiny fingers reached up, trembling, as though asking for reassurance the universe had failed to give him. Arin didn't hesitate. He slid his hand gently under the baby's palm. Warmth pulsed outward. Every light in the palace flared in unison. The guards staggered backward. Veril clutched his tablet to his chest. Elira inhaled sharply as the infant's glow threaded outward, weaving into the palace like roots burrowing into soil. And then, a voice, not heard, but felt, brushed against Arin's mind. Not language, not thought, a question, a fear, a reaching. Arin's humming softened instinctively in response, becoming almost like breathing. The baby calmed. The psychic pressure faded, but the ship above the palace did not. The comms officer pressed fingers to her earpiece. Your Grace, the vessel is emitting a low-frequency signal. We're attempting translation, but nothing matches the database. Elira turned to Veril. Could it be psychic? No species we know broadcasts this far into neural space, Veril said. Except, his gaze drifted to the baby, and then to Arin. The implication landed like a falling star. You think it's calling to him, Arin said, throat tightening. Or responding, Veril murmured. Something in that ship is tuned to the air's neural frequency. And now, through him, it can sense you. Elira finished quietly. Arin's palms went cold. Why me? He whispered. But he already knew the answer. Humans leaked emotions. Humans broadcast unintentionally. Humans connected. The ship might not be after the child. It might be after the link that made the child stable. Your Grace, an officer shouted from the hall. Unknown energy buildup in the vessel's undercarriage. It's preparing something. We don't know if it's a weapon. Shields, Elira barked, still recovering from the earlier glitch. We have limited coverage. And the officer swallowed. The palace lattice is syncing itself to the human's harmonic pattern. Elira looked at Arin like she was seeing both salvation and disaster bound together. Arin Solace, she said slowly. Can you change the melody? He blinked. What? Alter it. Shift the tone, the rhythm. Guide the lattice into a different configuration. Talk to the ship. Through him. Talk to the ship. Using a lullaby. My grandmother didn't exactly raise me to negotiate with orbital threats, Arin managed. Humans adapt, Elira said, voice fierce and steady. It is your nature. Do it again. He didn't know how to control something he'd never meant to start. He didn't know how to direct a melody that had always been instinct. But the baby was crying softly again, sensing the rising danger. His glow wavered, flickering between panic and trust. Arin swallowed hard, then tried. He slid from the original tune, soft, circular, into something slower, more grounded. A melody he barely remembered, sung once by a tired mother on a mining world with a sky the color of old copper. A song meant to anchor, not soothe. The baby's glow shifted color, blue to violet. The palace responded. Light along the walls darkened, deepened, thickened into lines that throbbed with each beat of the melody. And above them, the ship answered. The comm screens flickered violently, then filled with a single pulsing symbol, a spiral of violet light. Veril gasped. It's repeating the air's new harmonic signal. Elira's voice was almost a whisper. You're communicating with a ship older than the palace, with a design no species recognized, through a child less than a week old, using a janitor's half-remembered lullaby. The spiral symbol pulsed faster, then faster. Energy build-up increasing. The guard at the hollow table warned. We may have triggered a reaction. Arin, Elira said urgently. Change it again. Now. He did. He slid the melody upward, lifting it like someone raising a lantern in the dark. The harmony brightened, light, hopeful, beckoning. The baby giggled. Every system in the palace flared bright gold. The ship stopped charging. Its spiral symbol steadied. And then, something descended. Not a weapon. A drone. Metallic, narrow, shaped like a teardrop with fractal wings that shimmered like heat over stone. It entered the palace through the upper dome, passing straight through the shields as if they were made of fog. Guards raised weapons. Elira lifted a hand. Wait. The drone hovered before the cradle, glowing the same violet as the baby. It projected a faint shape, a symbol shifting between forms, like it was trying to find the right language. Arin's humming slowed. The symbol resolved. A cradle, not a threat. A message. Veril inhaled sharply. Your Grace, this ship may be ancient. Pre-Regency. A guardian vessel, designed to monitor royal neurolines. It wasn't attacking. It was coming, Elira whispered, to answer the air's distress call. The drone floated closer, humming gently. The baby reached toward it. Arin instinctively moved between them. Wait, he said softly. Not until we know what it wants. The drone tilted, as if studying him. Then it projected a second symbol. Simpler, clearer. A human silhouette. A line connecting the silhouette to the cradle. Then to the ship. Veril's eyes widened. It's identifying him, recognizing the human link as part of the regulation system. Elira exhaled, long and shaky. Arin Solace, you are now officially part of the royal protocol. Arin felt the weight of that. The responsibility, the danger, the trust. The baby cooed, glowing warmly, and the drone dimmed its lights and lowered itself, gently, almost respectfully. Elira looked at Arin, not with authority now, but with something approaching gratitude. You have saved us twice today, she said quietly. Not with strength, not with power. Her eyes softened. With what humanity does best, connection. Arin swallowed. Outside, the strange ship waited, no longer hostile, but expectant. Inside, the baby reached for Arin's hand again, and Arin knew, with a certainty that settled into his bones, that this wasn't over. Something had awakened, in the child, in the palace, in the skies above, and in him. Arin didn't sleep for the next 30 hours. He was allowed to. Nurses urged him. Veril fussed over hydration levels. Even Elira herself insisted he rest. But every time he drifted toward unconsciousness, the baby stirred. Not crying anymore, but restless, like a tiny star trying to decide what to shine at next. And each time, it was Arin's humming that steadied him. So he stayed. Not because he'd been ordered to, though he had. Not because the palace now looked at him as some kind of critical system component, though it did. But because the baby looked at him with wide, silver-blue eyes that held raw, uncomplicated trust Arin couldn't bear to let down. When the palace finally stabilized and the mysterious guardian vessel settled into an observation orbit above the capital, the crisis shifted from imminent danger to something stranger and far more complicated. Everyone wanted to understand the connection. No one wanted to break it, especially not the heir, who visibly brightened whenever Arin entered the room. His glow is responsive to you, Veril observed, peering into the cradle with an expression caught between scientific thrill and existential confusion. It diminishes when you leave. Elira's voice came from behind them. Like most infants, he bonds to the one who makes him feel safe. It's more than that, Veril countered. His neural oscillations match Solace's in measurable waves. They're tuning. Arin rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. I'm really not special. I swear. Humans all leak emotions. It's just something we do. Yes, Veril said pointedly. But not all humans harmonize with a sovereign neurofield on instinct. Elira approached the cradle, fingertips brushing the crystal edge. Her presence brought a soft warmth into the room, like standing near a heat lamp filtered through velvet. He chose you, she said simply. Arin felt a quiet jolt in his chest. He wanted to argue. He wanted to insist this was an accident, a fluke, a mistake born of coincidence and panic. But the baby reached up again, tiny hand glowing faintly, choosing him a second time. And Arin's heart broke open in a way he hadn't known was possible. He hummed again, soft, tender, reflexive. The air melted into sleep. Elira let out a breath she had been holding for far too long. Your voice has become his heartbeat. Her words settled into the air like stardust. Veril cleared his throat, perhaps to hide the softness creeping across his features. There is still the matter of the guardian vessel. The mood shifted instantly. The ship, hanging silent above the palace like an old memory that refused to leave. Elira turned toward Arin. The drone attempted communication again. He winced. Please don't say it asked for me. It asked for you. Arin groaned. Why can't it ask for literally anyone else? A diplomat? A psychic? A wall panel? Because, Veril said dryly, it does not speak in language. It speaks through harmonic correspondence, through emotional signal, through the same frequency the air uses. And you, apparently, are the only human the palace lattice considers coherent enough to form a bridge. That's not comforting, Arin muttered. Consider it an honor, Veril replied. I'd really rather not. Elira stepped closer. Arin Solace, would you be willing to interface with the vessel under control conditions? You would not be alone. My entire guard would be present, and you would never leave the heir's side. Arin glanced down at the baby, sleeping, glowing faintly like a heartbeat trapped in crystal. If the guardian vessel existed to protect heirs, if it had answered the child's distress, if it had almost torn through the palace to do so, then understanding it wasn't optional. "Yes, Your Grace," Arin said. "Tell me what to do." The contact chamber was a dome of mirrored surfaces and suspended light panels that drifted like slow-moving stars. Normally, it was used for diplomatic psychic interfaces, but none of those were designed for someone who had never psychically interfaced with anything more complex than a frustrating vacuum vent. Arin stood in the center with the baby's cradle beside him, humming softly to keep the air calm. Guards lined the perimeter. Varel monitored scanners. Elira stood directly in front of him, steady and regal. A humming vibration entered the chamber. The drone. It floated down from an aperture in the ceiling, violet wings shimmering as it projected a gentle spiral of light, its version of a greeting. The baby squealed in delight. Arin gulped. The drone rotated once, as if collecting data, then projected its three symbols again. A cradle, a ship, a human. The line connecting them glowed brighter this time, branching and looping in fractal strands. "It's forming a neural map," Varel whispered. "It's showing its purpose." Elira stepped beside Arin. "It is a guardian, perhaps older than the Regency, perhaps older than the species who built this palace." She nodded toward the baby, "and its directive is to protect him." The drone pulsed, confirming. Arin exhaled. "So you aren't here to hurt him." The drone dimmed, gentle, compliant. A new symbol appeared, a star fractured into three pieces. Elira inhaled sharply. "That looks like the shattering recorded in the old archives, when the founding species fled the cataclysm." Varel's fingers danced across his slate. "This ship might be from that era, a remnant, a protector forged during the fall of the last empire. And it answered the air." Elira stared at the drone, eyes softening. It recognized the bloodline. Arin looked between them, heart pounding. "Okay, history lesson later. What does it want now?" The drone flickered again. Two new symbols appeared. An infant, a small, glowing point pulsing beside it. Varel frowned. "Is that representing the air?" And something next to him. Elira tilted her head. "A companion?" The drone glowed brighter. "Yes." Arin's throat tightened. "A guardian. You mean me?" The drone hovered closer. Arin froze, but the baby reached out, touching the drone with glowing fingertips. The drone pulsed violet. Not threatening, not questioning, acknowledging. Varel's slate beeped urgently. "Your Grace, I'm reading a stable triharmonic resonance between the air, Solace, and the drone. They form a linked triad." "A triad," Elira murmured. "A protector, a sovereign, a conductor." Arin blinked. "A what now?" "You," she said simply. "You're the conductor." Arin stared at her. "Your Grace, with immense respect, I mop floors." "Not anymore." Elira touched his shoulder, not commanding, but grounding. "You bridged my son's mind," she said. "You saved my palace. You ended a threat before we understood it was not a threat. And you saw the child when the rest of us only saw the air." Her voice softened even more. "You're not here by accident." Arin swallowed hard. The drone projected one final symbol, three shapes in orbit around one another, glowing with unified light. The triad. Then it powered down, folding into standby mode beside the cradle, like a loyal hound settling beside a crib. Silence washed through the chamber. Elira looked at Arin, not as a worker, not as a curiosity, as something rare. "Arin Solace," she said, "you will remain the royal custodian of the air. But more than that, your role will be written into the future of this dynasty. Humans will not be footnotes in our palace. You have reminded us why your species survived where stronger ones fell." He felt the words in his bones. Connection. Humanity's oldest technology. The baby stirred, eyes glowing softly as he looked up at Arin. Arin found himself smiling. "Well," he murmured, brushing a finger gently along the baby's tiny hand. "I guess we're in this together." A faint harmonic hum echoed through the chamber, as if the palace itself agreed. Elira bowed her head, not deep, but enough to make every guard in the room inhale sharply. "For my son's life," she said quietly, "you have my gratitude. For my people's future, you may have changed far more than that." Arin felt the weight of destiny settle onto his shoulders like a cloak he had not asked for, but one that somehow fit. The air cooed. The drone pulsed. And somewhere far above, the ancient guardian ship shifted its orbit, settling into a silent vigil that would last as long as the triad remained united. Arin let his humming return, light, warm, steady. The air glowed brighter. Humanity had found its place not by force, not by brilliance, not by technology, but by being what it had always been, a species that held crying children, a species that soothed, a species that connected. And the universe had finally learned to listen,